Welcome back to the Lunchtime Podcast. Our final episode before the Euros. We're going to fly through Group B for you, which is a really fascinating group. Thanks a million to everybody who's liked and subscribed on YouTube. We've released our stuff on Spotify now. If that's your preferred method of consuming podcasts, then for sure, like us and follow us on Spotify. Give Daniel X more money when he's buying so he can buy Arsenal. So what we're going to do today, we're going to fly through. So to start off with Group B, I'm going to have a quick talk about Finland. Finland football's been around for 113 years. This is the first time they've ever been to a major championship. Their manager, Marko Kaareva, he's been involved. He's managed the national team a total of 4 times since the mid-80s. And he's got a really nice group of players gelled together. Now, as we mentioned yesterday with how beneficial it is for North Macedonia to be in their group, this is a really rotten group for Finland. They share with Russia, Denmark and Belgium, which really isn't nice. Mr. Lunchtime, I've started rambling without even saying hello. How are you, my friend?
I'm not too bad. How are you, Biggie?
I'm great. Never better.
You continue on there to tell us about Finland. I know you have a few cool.
Thanks to my friend Mikko, my friend in Finland, who's currently doing his service. The Finns have to do their military service, just to keep the scary neighbours at bay. Not Sweden, I imagine. So, a couple of things about Finland. There's a word in Finnish called kalsari kanit. Kalsari kanit. And that's the feeling you get when you're drinking at home in your underwear and you've no intention of going out, but you know you're going to get drunk. So I thought that was a nice way to start off the podcast today. The Finnish are also the most content and happy people on the planet, according to a UN survey last year, which is quite surprising because you'd think they'd be cold. But my friends that I met from Finland have not been. In terms of their team, did really well to get here. They had a fantastic win against France in November. They won 2-0 in Paris. But since then, the wheels have come off a little bit. They haven't won a game since November of 2020. So 7 or 8 games, they haven't managed to win. They had 3 losses on the bounce in the build-up, and they haven't scored in their last 2 games. Their last game was a 1-0 loss to Estonia at home, which is rotten. You'll notice a trend in this Euros of a lot of people putting forward what they call in boxing woolly lambs for their final game, so they can hammer the shit out of them and come into the tournament on a positive note. But Finland didn't manage to beat Estonia in their last game, which is really, really worrying, coming in on the back of some very bad form. In goals, they have Lukas Hardecki from Leverkusen, so a really good, solid German Bundesliga keeper. Centre half, they have Daniel O'Shaughnessy. So Daniel's dad moved to Finland, and that's where Daniel O'Shaughnessy was born. He moved to Finland from Galway, so he's half Galwegian, half Finnish. So I'll be shouting for Finland 100% throughout this tournament. And we wish all the best to Daniel O'Shaughnessy.
That's for sure.
Apart from that, they really, really lack talent in their back four, and they really lack depth. They have Jere Juurinen from Genk, who's quite a quality left back, but apart from that, they're really not a huge amount. Salvi Varasanen, who plays for Chievo, second division Italy, average enough. And yeah, but we'll move on to the midfield. Glenn Kamara, who plays for Rangers, hasn't played much this year. He'll anchor it. Marcus Forss, who plays for Brentford, 10 goals in 50 games for Brentford. He can play striker behind the front too, so he's a handy option to have. And then the main man, I think, could be Joel Poyampalo. Apologies, Mr. Lunchtime. He was supposed to be a superstar kid at Bayer Leverkusen, and he just went on loan last year to Union Berlin, where he's playing some really good football. And he'll be beside the talismanic Timo Pukki, who's been fantastic for club and country. He's 30 goals in 91 games for Finland, and since he was signed for Norwich in 2018 on a free transfer, he has 67 goals in 126 games. So that is serious return from your free transfer. So it could be Pukki Party for Finland. I don't think it will be. I think it could be absolutely rotten. Another word on Pukki, actually. Pukki in Finnish means goat. Timo Pukki is literally the goat for this Finnish team. The best bet, I don't have one, to be honest. Because of their scoring form, I think the best bet is the first game against Denmark. Denmark to win and under 3.5 goals was available at 5-6. Denmark and under 4.5, if you can get that to, 3.5 would be fantastic, or 4.5. I think that in their first game, they're playing in Parken in Denmark. That's going to be nasty. Mr. Lunchtime, anything to add?
No, I'd agree with all that. I kind of feel sorry for them, the group they're in. Not that Russia are a great side or anything. It's just the fact that Russia have their 3 games at home and they have to play Russia in Russia. Just like, that's awful. Russia are quite strong at home, as they showed in the last World Cup. Their last few competitive games at home, they've been very, very strong. So I do kind of worry for them. They also have to play Denmark, as you said, in Denmark, and then you have Belgium in Copenhagen, or in Russia again. It's not really, it's awful. Like, the draw has just been so unkind to them. And
coming in, that's all I can as well. You know, coming in with, if they came in with the form they had, say 6 months ago, 8 months ago, you'd be kind of optimistic they might be able to get a result somewhere. But it'll be the kind of like Iceland in France. That's like they'll have massive following and massive support. You know, I would imagine they'll be kind of seen as a minnow similar to Macedonia. They are my favourite minnow so far, for sure.
The biggest thing, though, the biggest difference I think with the Iceland team that went to France is that they didn't have to play 2 teams in their group in their back garden. And if they were playing Russia and Denmark in neutral venues, as usual would be the case in the Euros, I'd give them a little chance of maybe pulling off a draw at least in one of the games, if not both games. But the fact they have to go away from home to 2 teams who need to beat them to get out of the group, just like, I just can't see them picking up Antonin. I hope they do well. They bring a lot of colour. Their fans are very passionate, all that, and be great. Like, very similar to Ireland in that way.
Very.
And just
they have 5.5 million as well, and because it's Finland, you can't play soccer for most of the year in most of the country, and it's really sparsely populated. So the government, decades ago, started building these indoor full-size soccer pitches to get soccer going with the kids, and they've built it up from that. So you've seen some superstars arise, like the guys who have mentioned, Poyanpanu and Pukki, just from, you know, being built through this system and keeping a continued manager. So it's a really nice story in a country where like ice hockey is the main sport. You know, who would you like to bring up next? Maybe might have a look at Belgium.
Yeah, we can have a look at Belgium. Yeah, they. I don't know what to make of them. They're obviously like the most consistent team in the world, alongside France, for the last 6 or 7 years, really. I don't know what to make of them. They're 13-2 to win the tournament. They were all the rage for the last 2 tournaments, the World Cup and the Euros. Like, they went out at the Euros to Wales, and then at the World Cup they lost 1-0 to France after putting out Brazil without having a shot on target. I think they're not as strong as they were then. Age has caught up with a lot of their main guys. Vincent Kompany's retired since then. There's doubts about Witsel in the middle of the pitch. There's doubts about De Bruyne. The injury picked up the Champions League final. Hazard's form.
Vertonghen.
Vertonghen, yeah, he's 34 now, I think. Like, he's playing with Benfica. He didn't get a new contract at Spurs. Alderweireld beside him. Like, the two of them know each other inside out. They played their whole career together, so that will stand to them. Like, they have a good goalkeeper in Courtois from Real Madrid. Good wing backs in Castagna from Leicester and Meunier from, he was with PSG. I don't know where he is now, actually.
He's at Dortmund. He moved there last summer.
He's at Dortmund. That's where he is, yeah. But the big thing they have is probably one of the most informed strikers in the world, and if not one of the best international strikers of all time, in Lukaku. He is just a machine. Now, I wasn't great with my notes here now today, because I actually had a stat on Lukaku, his international goal record. It is outstanding, but I forgot to write it down, so I can't tell you what it is, but I know it is unbelievable. And he had a great season.
For United, apologies. Even for United, he was seen as kind of a comical figure at the end.
Yeah.
And he averaged a goal every 2 games. Now, if Rashford, Martial, or Greenwood came up with the same average over the same number of games, they'd be touted as superstars.
Now, the only thing about them is if De Bruyne and Hazard are fit and hit the ground running, they will take stopping because they have the two of them. They have Yuri Tielemans from Leicester in the middle of the pitch. Like, they have Dries Mertens, like he's been playing his whole life in Serie A with Napoli. And he's a good record, great goal scorer. They've Carrasco from Real Atletico Madrid. Like, they've so many options. I just worry about them at the back. I think the three defenders are going to be a problem. Now, they're very experienced, which is one thing. But unlike Italy have two very experienced centre-halves in Chiellini and Bonucci. But Belgium are different from Italy. Italy won't play a high line to expose them, whereas Belgium will play a high line. They'll get out of the group. I've no doubts about that. They'll probably come out with flying colours. But I just think, I don't know what to make them. I think they're going to struggle. Maybe their last 16 game, if they top the group as a third place team, they'll get by that. Yeah, I suppose they could ease De Bruyne and Hazard into the tournament, and I suppose no one will want to play them. They lost to England last October in Wembley in the Nations League 2-1. They bounced back from that. They've won 7 of the last 9. They drew twice with the Czech Republic and Greece. But they beat Denmark home and away in that Nations League group to just pick Denmark to the top, 2-0 and 4-2. And they beat England 2-0 at home after that. So it's quite strong form. It's as good a form really as anybody has coming into the tournament.
They'll be happy to beat Denmark in this group as well, even though they have to go to Parken in Copenhagen. Beaten Denmark in the last 2 games. Nobody else has beaten Denmark in the last year, apart from Belgium twice, and they have them in their group. So that's not bad.
They don't stop attacking. That is one thing about them, and they won't give up. It's just like if De Bruyne is fully fit and Hazard hits the ground running, they will be a danger to everybody. They're kind of under their radar a little bit this time. Like I was saying, everybody kind of fancied them the last 2 tournaments, and there's not much talk about them. So yeah, they'd have a good chance, I suppose. But I just can't make up my mind on them, and until I see them play, maybe that first game, is it Denmark they play first? Is off the top of my head, no, they play Russia first in St. Petersburg. So that'll probably tell us where they're at. Home crowd behind Russia and all that. So that will tell us where they're at. And we'll kind of have a better idea from there. I still think they're going to top the group. I think themselves and Denmark will come out of this group. And the best bets really I could find for them were, I like the straight forecast in this group. So Belgium to finish first and Denmark to finish second. It's 5-2. I like that. And I also like their 4-5 alone just to top the group. And if they're going to go far, I think Lukaku is going to be the main man for them. And if you think Belgium could win the Euros, I think the 20-1 available on Lukaku to win player of the tournament could be quite big come a final. Because if they're going to win the Euros, it's going to be down to his goals.
Or Tielemans, maybe.
Yeah, but the thing with these things, Conal, are a biggie, is that they don't usually go to someone like that. They usually go to the star man in the team. You know, that's it's like De Bruyne is shorter in the bet now than Lukaku to be player of the tournament. You know, it's usually the main guy, unless it's done by being defending the whole way. You know, like Cannavaro got it in the 2006 World Cup with Italy because they defended the whole tournament. Modric got it at the last Euros, or at the World Cup with Croatia, but he was their main guy. So I just think if they are to win the tournament, I think Lukaku would probably be player of the tournament because it's going to be down to his goals. You can easily see him scoring a hat-trick against Finland, 1 against Russia, maybe 1 against Denmark. He'll have 5 going into the group stages against a third-place team. You know, the fixtures aren't the worst for him, especially like anyone else playing Denmark, I'd say they won't break them down. But the fact they won 4-2 in Denmark already and beat them 2-0 at home.
They have to sort of kibosh on them. And Lukaku, 60 international goals in 93 games.
That's the stat I was trying to think of. Yeah,
religiously impressive. But just on on Belgium before we leave them, my favourite bet for Belgium is definitely to beat Russia and both teams to score. Available at 3-1 in some places, 11-4 everywhere. Them and both teams to score. I see that game being 2-1 because I don't like the Russians as much as I did before the last tournament. And just actually before we leave Belgium, one thing I loved about the World Cup, Belgium at the World Cup, they played Brazil. Martinez completely changed the strategy, played 3 attackers up the pitch the whole time. so that Brazil had to drop 3 defenders constantly, because Brazil were leaving 2 holding and letting their wing backs fly down the wings, especially Marcelo. They couldn't do that, and they made him defend because they stuck Hazard, Lukaku, and I can't remember who it was, I'm going to say Carrasco, right up at the on the midfield. Even when Brazil were in their box, they didn't drop them ever. And it was tactical genius because Brazil didn't know what to do. And then Hazard, on his day, is the best out ball in football. You can just launch the ball up to him. He can take on 2 or 3 players, draw a foul. He was extraordinary that day. I'd love to see Hazard back to something near his prime for this tournament, but I wouldn't be betting on it.
Yeah, it's 3 years now since we've seen Hazard in his prime. Since he's gone to Madrid, he's done absolutely nothing. So until I see it with my own eyes, I wouldn't be taking it on trust that he's going to be in his prime or anywhere near it, to be honest. But if I see it with my own eyes, as I said, you'll know with Belgium after the first game. I'd say if you want to back Belgium, I'd say sit back, watch them play Russia. You'll have an idea of where they're at, and their price isn't going to change that much if they beat Russia. They're going to be expected to beat Russia by the bookies comfortably, so it's not going to change that much if they beat Russia. So if I was going to have a bet in Belgium, I'd advise you to sit back, watch the first game, make up your mind what you think of them, and then go in. The price isn't going to change after the first game. So we'll move on to one of your favorite teams of the tournament, Biggie, in Denmark.
Yeah, Denmark, I wrote them up on hunchtime.com about a month ago. They were at 35-1. 2 little wins for Hunchtime that we might as well brag about because it's our podcast. We tipped Italy at 12 or 14-1 a month ago. They're now 7.5-1. So the market copped onto them. Everybody sort of copped onto them way too late. They were serious value. They were available at 16 and 18-1 if you got them 3 or 4 months ago. But Denmark as well, 35-1. I was trying to find a better price than that on them now, 3 or 4 weeks later, but they're gone into 25s in most places. I don't know if I like them to win at that price. What I do like about Denmark though, since last September, they've won 9 and they've lost 2. The 2 have been to Belgium, which is a bit of a kick in the hole that they're in this group. The 9 they won, 8 of them were to 0. They've put up some serious results. 2 draws, drew with Germany the last day really unconvincingly. But what I do like about them is they're seriously nasty. Their midfield is nastier than a visit from the TV license inspector. Like you've Højbjerg, Delaney, and marshalling as sort of a block in front of a pivot, they call it, in front of the back 4. And they're seriously abrasive, strong players. They make them unbelievably hard to break down. At the back, Daniel Vaz had a kind of career rejuvenation when he went to Valencia. He could play right back, left back, right wing, left wing. I'd say he'll play probably right back. Joachim Mailer, Atalanta wing back, is a flyer. He can also, he has loads of positional dexterity. He can play on both wings, but I think he'll play left back. And watch out for him in this tournament. At centre half, Simon Kjær for Milan will captain the side. Beside him, if they're short on centre-backs, Vestergaard will probably start. On the bench, they'll have Christensen for Chelsea or Joachim Andersen for Fulham. I'm not going to go any deeper into centre-halves. They have 6 really good centre-halves, and they have loads of positional. They can do a lot of positional switching with their centre-halves. The formation he's going to play, though, is going to be a type of 4-4-2, I imagine, or a 4-4-1-1. With Eriksen in the 1. He's been a little bit disappointing. Like, if you remember at Tottenham, he was kind of unbelievably consistent in his brilliance every year. He hasn't carried that through. I heard he had stomach problems and stuff like that was affecting his fitness and his weight. But I'd love, he has 36 goals in 108 games for Denmark. Absolute superstar on his day. Up front, lots of options, none of which I really like. Kasper Dolberg, who was a wunderkind at Ajax when he was in his teens. Then he moved to Nice in 2 or 3 years ago. Hasn't really proven anything at Nice. 6 goals this year for an average Nice team. He would probably start up front. Apart from that, they've Josef Poulsen, who can play up front or as off the striker. He's a decent option. Really not a goal threat though, the Leipzig forward. They've Martin Braithwaite, who Barcelona signed when they ruined Leganes' chance by taking their best player and bringing in him. He's a forward. Scored 2 goals for Leganes in the season before in 20-something games. Went to Barca and played 20-something games and scored 2. So that's what you're going to get from him, I imagine. Robert Skoff from Hoffenheim, attacking midfielder forward, could be really interesting to bring him in. But basically, like I just mentioned one more, Jens Striger Larsen for Udinese, really good winger / forward. So Denmark have loads of options, but what I love the most is Kasper Schmeichel in goal. If he is their star, they can win this tournament. Their back four is absolutely brilliant and it has depth. Their midfield two, the pivot of Højbjerg and Delaney, are probably the best defensive midfield partnership in the tournament. From there, if they can eke out a goal or two, then they would be very, very difficult to beat.
Yeah, I know they're very good at set pieces and they work on it and work on it and work on it, and they get a lot of goals, especially from corners, from Eriksen's delivery and the big men. They have so many big men throughout the team that they are very hard to mark from corners. Kind of a throwback to the Jack Charlton style. Get your corner and get all the big men in the box, just throw it in there, and if you get 4 or 5 corners a game, that's 4 or 5 chances for you to score. And if you take one and you're not conceding at the other side, you're always going to be in a game.
Pep hears you say that, but yeah, it's perfectly fine of getting goals.
The one I do like Denmark, and the one thing that worries me about them is if they concede the first goal, they're not built to chase the game. That's the one worry I have with them. Now, I know I've looked at the draw, and I'm second in this group. I am convinced is one of the best positions you can finish in the tournament. Because if you finish second in this group, you play. Usually, if you finish second in a group in a tournament, you play a top team from another group. But second in this group plays. No, it's not. There'd be a 50-50 game. Like Italy will top their group, so you're playing second in Italy's group, which would most likely be Turkey or Switzerland. If you finish second in Denmark too, so say Denmark could fancy that, Switzerland and Turkey would fancy that as well. But the winners of that go into a last 8 game against. I think it's going to be Ukraine. We talked about this yesterday. The Holland side of the draw.
Yeah.
Even Holland itself is not the worst last 8 game if you're getting a seed. So Denmark would be looking at that if they do finish second in the group. It really opens up for them. So yeah, that's just an opinion I have. It's one of the better groups to finish second in, and we'll talk about that later with England's group again. I just have a theory on that as well. But yeah, I think I do like them, and they're definitely a team to keep on side for the tournament. I think very hard to break down. Good players, well drilled, good coach. They all know their jobs. They played well at the last World Cup as well. I remember them frustrating France in the group stage. So yeah, I'd be very keen on them. Yeah, definitely.
They'll frustrate everybody, and they won't be great to watch. But they are set up to win a long slog of a tournament, and they do have depth, and they're perfectly happy. Like they have a great chance of topping this group as well. They play every game at home, including that Russia one. Actually, the last one is also in Parken in Copenhagen. So, yeah, I absolutely love this Denmark team. They're definitely mine, and maybe the Hunch dark horse. They're mine anyway. You can have your own dark horse, Mr. Dunn. But let's slip through Russia. What are your thoughts?
Skip through them is the way to describe them. I've absolutely no love for them, no hate for them. They're good at home. They are like, as you'd expect, a robot of a team. They play the 3 centre halves at the back. They're all playing the Russian league. They've 2 centre halves. I can't pronounce their names. One of them is called Simonov, and the other guy, I wouldn't even try to pronounce it. But they have 70 caps between them, so they're experienced. Now, up front is where they come alive. They have Alexander Golovin. He's had a great season with Monaco. He has scored 5 goals and assisted 9 goals. And they have up top with him supplying the ball. They have the guy that has another guy with an unbelievable international record in Zuba, who has 29 goals in 52 games for Russia. The big man. This man is definitely the tallest, strongest player in the tournament. He is unbelievable in the air. I watched him recently playing Slovenia in a Nations League game, and they could not get a handle on him. He's big, he's awkward, everything goes to his head. The wing-backs just hit it towards his head. He has also scored 20 goals this season in the Russian league and 27 games for Zenit. So yeah, he's quite good.
Just something that struck me there, like everybody wants to play this tick-attack of football and Guardiola style, and like all the new German coaches come out and they want to play that passing style. You're rolling it to your left back or your right back. But if you think of the most like the most valuable position on the pitch is striker, and the most valuable strikers in the game are 6'3", 6'4", Lewandowski, Haaland, Harry Kane, and those throwback guys like Artem Zuba, who's 6'6" and 17 stone. They're still unbelievably valuable, you know.
Yeah, they are definitely, you know, and yeah, they drew Poland last week in a warm-up game. Then they beat Bulgaria, as you'd suspect. But like it was 1-0. They struggled, like created a lot of chances. They struggled to, like, for all that they do struggle to score goals. The big man does need probably 5 chances to take one, but more than likely he will take one. So yeah, that's where I am with them. I don't know if they'll come out of the group as a best placed third team. They'll probably get at least 3 points by beating Finland at home. That'll probably see them enough to get one of the best placed third teams. I think it's 4 of the 6 groups the best placed third team comes out. So I can see them coming out and to go out in the last 16. I couldn't see them going much further than that. The home advantage disappears then. They'll be playing one of the top teams in the group, and I just couldn't see them progressing past there. They're 11 to 8 to go out in the last 16. It's the best bet really on them I can find. I don't know what to do with them. I probably won't watch much of them, to be honest. I can imagine themselves in Denmark being one of the worst games that'll ever be seen at the European Championships. It'll just be horrendous. But yeah, that's where I am with them. I don't know what you think about them, Biggie.
Yeah, a lot weaker than other Russian teams. I like Yuri Zhirkov and Mario Fernandez, their wing backs. I love the way they push the wing backs up the pitch. Midfield, Denis Cheryshev for Valencia was meant to be a superstar when Valencia signed him. Hasn't been. Golovin, I've been hearing about. He's supposed to be a superstar for years. Had a very good season, in fairness, this year at Monaco. Everything's going to go through Golovin as well. He's a free role. Anybody else? Alexis Miranchuk, rocket of a shot. Atalanta, play attacking midfield. Not sure if he'll start.
Yeah, I don't know. They play Zobin and Ozdovev in midfield, and then they kind of give the free role, as you were saying there, to Golovin, and just hope that the big man puts the ball in the net.
Yeah.
And that's actually, you mentioned Mario Fernandez there. He has 6 goals in 30 internationals from right back.
Wow.
So he could be a little sneak if you wanted an anytime goal scorer, or anybody's doing a player to have a shot on target or something like that at decent odds. He could be a little creep for something like that.
Great shout. Let's pop on to England's group. So for your first thoughts on this group, do you think this is a kind one for England?
Yeah, it probably is. The Czech Republic, I think, are quite weak. Scotland. They have great Celtic pride and all that sort of stuff, and they'll fight. And they won't go to Wembley and lie down from England. And then you have Croatia, who I had written off myself. Then I watched them play Belgium on Sunday because I had kind of started taking an interest in them late last week, just out of the fact they always kind of turn up in these tournaments. And just as I was having a look through their team now, it's quite old, which is worrying. But I think in that first game, they're going to give England a massive scare. Just especially as well what I was hearing today about England, that it looks like the England team has kind of been leaked. And they're starting with 4 wing-backs in their first game. 2 playing as centre-halves in Walker and Luke Shaw beside John Stones. And Chilwell at left-back, wing-back, and I think it's Trippier at right wing-back. So this is my thing with England. Like, they're joint favourites to win the tournament. How every other team that has played a warm-up game for this tournament has put out 10 of their best team, 9 of their best team in their last warm-up game. Get them playing together, get them used to the system, that your style of play, that you want to play, and all that sort of stuff. England played 4-4-2 or 4-3-3 in their 2 warm-up games. And now they're saying they're going to play a 3-5-2 sort of thing in their first group game against an experienced Croatian side who put them out of the last World Cup, don't forget, in the semi-final. And I just, like, they don't know who's going to start for England. Like, guaranteed starters on the England team are Harry Maguire is injured, fair enough, he'd be a guaranteed starter. Pickford in goal, you might as well not have him there. Harry Kane up front is guaranteed starter. Declan Rice possibly is a guaranteed starter. Apart from that,
probably.
Who?
Trippier, probably, I would say.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, he has Reece James and he has Kyle Walker and he has Trippier there for the right back position. But, like, it's all up in the air. Who's going to play up front beside Kane? It's going to be Rashford, Sterling, Sancho, Grealish, Mount, Foden. Where are you going to put all these guys in? Nobody knows. I watched Portugal playing last night against Bulgaria, and they went with their first choice 11. They didn't care who they were playing. They won 4-0, a nice confidence booster before the tournament. But they know what their first choice 11 is now. Whereas England are still trying to figure that out. They're coming up against the Croatian team in the first game who know what their first team is. Literally pretty much the same team that played in the last World Cup, with Kramaric, who scored 20 goals for Hoffenheim this year, coming in instead of Mandzukic. They all know each other so well. Their form has been poor. Now, that is granted. But at the same time with Croatia, can you properly write them off? Any team with Modric, Kovacic and Rakitic in the middle of the pitch, it's just like they're old and their legs won't last 90 minutes. But it is very, very solid. They have Perisic and Rebic on the wings. They're lightning quick. They can score goals. Kramaric, as I mentioned, up top. The goalkeeper's been there for a few years. They have Vida at the back, an experienced international centre half. The right back is Veselko. I can't say his name. Veselko, yeah. And they just have such a solid first 11. Now, if they get injuries, they will struggle. But I fancy them in that first game against England to put a real dampener on the hype that is around England. I think they're set up as they did in the last World Cup to just frustrate England. And I can see them coming out of that game definitely with a result. I still think England will top the group because they'll most likely beat Scotland. And they're capable of putting goals past the Czech Republic like Italy did last week in the warm-up game.
If you can see England slipping up in that first game under pressure, what about Croatia double chance, 11-10?
Yeah, it was 15-8 just a few days ago. People have obviously copped onto that.
15 days I love. I'd be biting your hand off for that. 11-10 I can't decide on. I think it's a little bit short. Like this England, like we'll just finish on Croatia first. Mario Pasalic, class midfielder, can jump in there. Niko Vlasic from CSKA Moscow, really good midfielder, cover. Up front they lack cover, really do. Like Bruno Petkovic. What you will see is a lot of the Dinamo Zagreb team who are actually really up and coming, who mightn't be in the eye. Bruno Petkovic for them up front. Miroslav Orsic, I remember he scored a hat-trick against Spurs to knock them out. What a wonderful day. Josko Gravdiol, centre half, valued at 20 million, one to watch. And Dominik Livakovic, the keeper. He could be sold after this tournament. He's a serious keeper. But Dinamo Zagreb, they'll have good representation. And Croatia aren't actually as shallow a squad as I thought, to be honest. They're not that bad. And it's also Darko, what's his name? Their manager. Zlatko Dalic's last year in charge. He's going to go after this tournament, as will Modric, as will probably
most
three more. Yeah. So like
they also Dejan Lovren to cover at centre half. He's a very experienced centre half for them.
He's only finished, I think, is he? But he's still playing at a high level.
He is, yeah. They're very solid, and like they were in the last World Cup final, and that is only it's 3 years ago now, and our age does catch up on you. But they're proven in these big tournaments that they can go deep when they have the side. They were also very unlucky at Euro 2012. They were in the group with Ireland, Italy, and Spain. And there was only 2 teams coming out of the group that time, and they went out on goal difference to Spain. And the final ended up between Italy and Spain. So they were very lucky in that tournament as well. Now, most of them lads are still involved, which would be a little worrying. But I don't think they have the legs in the side to go full length in the tournament. But they're more than capable of shocking England in that first game, coming out of the group. This is a great group to come second in because you're going to be playing second in Spain's group, which is Poland, who are completely, we talked about them already, or Sweden. So whoever comes second in this group, as opposed to first, who play second place in the Portugal, Germany, or France group. Like we seen England at the last World Cup, purposely finishing second in the group to avoid Brazil. So could we see them doing the same thing here, where tournament opens up for them, as opposed to playing Portugal, France, or Germany, and then if you win that, you have to play Spain in the last 8. Whereas if you finish second, you play a Sweden or a Poland, and then you get a last 8 game against Belgium, I think, if my maths are right there.
Mr. Lunchtime, I have one. If you want to back England 9-2, obviously not a chance. You're backing England at 9-2 if you can get Spain at almost 10-1. But if you do want to back England, maybe wait until they draw the first game or lose the first game. That would be optimal if you're an England fan. Lose the first game, you'll get second in that group. Your line to the is way easier, and the pressure is off you. You know, and because they'll stop singing about football coming home immediately. They'll probably go out to 9 or 10-1 if they lose the first game. But to be honest, if they lose the first game, they should come in, because topping this group is really not beneficial. What I do, positives about England, I think this will be a huge tournament for Declan Rice to see if he's as good as all the hype suggests. Had a pretty good year for the Hammers. Kieran Trippier has been absolutely brilliant for Atletico Madrid again this year. Will start at right back, which is pretty amazing considering England have 9 or 10 international quality right backs. They're so stacked at that position. They're bad. They're brilliant in the worst places. Up front, they're amazing with Sancho, Sterling, Kane, Grealish. They just like Rashford as well on this day is fantastic. But in midfield they look okay, not bad. But at the back, the wing backs they're fantastic, but their centre halves are poor, and they will miss Harry Maguire and the stability that he offers, because it's the position they're thinnest on in the squad, and they've lost Maguire. So another injury at centre half, which is very possible, could be catastrophic. Keeper Pickford is an okay keeper. His confidence is shot at international level, but he's been a fine Premier League keeper, just average.
My thing, when you're deciding if a team can win a tournament, and I'll ask you this now: what is the last team that won a tournament with a keeper like Pickford, who is he is bound to make at least one mistake in every game? He proved it again last week in a friendly game with Austria. He came out flapping at the last minute. I don't know if anybody's seen the video, but he was lying on the ground on his face while the Austrian lad who after he flapped it down, who won the rebound, you could say, was taking a free shot at goal, and one of his defenders that got back and cleared it off the line. But I can't remember a team winning a tournament with a keeper like Pickford. They just don't. It doesn't happen. You think the last few teams that won a tournament, France had Lloris and goes, right, he's not world class, but he's good. 2016, Portugal had Rui Patricio, the same. He doesn't make mistakes. You go back to Germany, they had Neuer. Spain had Casillas. Italy had Buffon at the World Cup.
I think it's not as much about the keeper, because a lot of the keepers you mentioned there wouldn't be a million miles. If Pickford is a 6 out of 10, but
oh my! Can we just cancel this podcast? Just say it, that Pickford is not a million miles away from some of the greatest goalkeepers of all time.
From Rui Patricio, I would say.
Yeah, but right, fair enough. But
a million miles away. But what I'm trying to say is it's more your defense as a unit. And if your keeper is really solid, he makes an average defense more confident. Pickford has no confidence at the moment, and he's not a great keeper at the best of times. And he's with a defense that is not used to playing together, and that could be catastrophic. So I think altogether, as well, Southgate is possibly the worst coach in this tournament. He speaks to the media very well, and he sounds like he knows what he's talking about. I assure you, he doesn't. And he will be totally found out. And his mixing of teams and styles and plays, if you asked him what his best England 11 is now, or what tactics does he play, I don't know if he'd know. It's really scary if you're an England fan, because you want to be coming into a tournament thinking we always start Rashford, Kane, and whoever it may be, say Foden, and they play together. They're the best together. But if they're injured, we have Sterling, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, and Grealish. But that's not the case, because you have no idea who the front three are going to be. And that, no team wins a tournament with that much instability at the back and uncertainty in their coach. So I'm laying the shit out of England.
Yeah, and the last thing I just want to say on England is obviously I don't want to be too negative, but at the World Cup, all the hype was that Southgate was a genius. He got them to a World Cup semi-final. Now, if you take a quick look at who they actually played, they beat Panama, they beat Tunisia, they beat Colombia, who were missing their two best players on a penalty shootout, and they beat Sweden. They played Belgium twice in that tournament. They lost both times, and they played Croatia and they lost. They're the first team actually ever to finish fourth in the World Cup and lose 3 games. So like they're very, very, very good at beating the mediocre to poor teams. They're very good at racking up the score and beating these teams 3-0, 4-0, as I suspect they would probably do to the poor Czechs in their last group game at Wembley, especially if Croatia take a point or something off them in the first game. Then you could see that happening. But when they play the tough teams, they can struggle. It's down to that. They're not used to playing together. Like, you can't go into a tournament and just not know your first choice. Like, not even 11, maybe first choice 9. They don't know that. Now, maybe they do and we don't know, and maybe they've been just keeping everything in reserve to explode in the tournament, in their home tournament. Possibly, I don't know. And if they are, fair play to them, they've pulled it off well. But at 5-1, I wouldn't touch them with your money, Biggie, never mind my own. And that's the last thing I'll say about them.
Well said. Let's quickly touch on the Czech Republic just before we go. Scotland as well. If you're a Scotland fan, like I'm not a huge like this Scotland team isn't uber talented, but like down the left, they're going to play 3 centre halves. I imagine one of them will be McTominay on the right. One of them will be Kieran Tierney on the left. Watch Tierney and Robertson playing left back and left wing, because sometimes they both go down that left side, so they're totally left side orientated, but they're world class down that wing.
They actually tried, sorry for cutting across, but they actually tried something different in their last warm-up game there on Saturday. They played Robertson at left back and they played Tierney as a left-sided midfielder, which I thought was quite interesting. Because the two of them are as good as you get, really attacking down the left. Now, it could be like Seamus Coleman and Matt Doherty with Ireland, can they play together and all that sort of thing. But if they click together down that left side, it'll take a fair team to hold them.
Sure. And also, like, if they play 3 at the back, McTominay brings the ball, he carries the ball into midfield, and at his best, like, he's quite a powerful runner with the ball, so he can go and carry the ball into midfield. It might be a way of breaking teams down who are, stronger than them on paper. They need a lot from Shea Adams.
They will, but they also have the. Sorry, they also have the link there between Armstrong and Adams, who both played for Southampton. So they're well used to playing together, and little intricate passes and that. So yeah, they. You surprised me actually the last day. You gave me a stat on Shea Adams, how many goals he'd scored. I was shocked.
Was it?
I think it was high. It was way higher than we both thought, anyways. But yeah, I wouldn't be too negative on Scotland. Like they have a tough group with England and Croatia, but that first game for them at Hampden Park in Glasgow, at home to the Czech Republic, is massive. As long as they don't lose that, they'll see themselves having a chance, especially as they have their last game again at home against Croatia, with a full Hampden behind them. It's not to be underestimated. If they can beat the Czechs in that first game, they'll have a free go kind of against England at Wembley, and no better team than the Scots to have a crack up England. We see it in rugby all the time. They will not fear England. They will have a crack at them. The joke is going around that they're England's B team and all this sort of nonsense. They're not. They have more going for them than the likes of Wales and that, I think. Like them sort of teams.
On top of that, Mr. Lunchtime, the holy Christ, when England got their 4th seed and they saw it was Scotland, that is not nice.
No.
They know Scotland are going to be outrageously fired up. The last thing I want to say about Scotland, best bet I found for Scotland, them in the Czech Republic playing at Hampden Park, first game, draw on both teams to score 7-2. 1-1 draw is going to be the result in that game, I imagine. Now, the Czechs, just before we go, Christ, Czech Republic, would you like to do it or will I? It's going to be dodgy enough either way.
You can do them there. You have a better knowledge of Slavia Prague and that sort of stuff. So that's basically what they are.
I'm tired, so I'll go through quickly. Keeper Pavlenka for Wolfsburg. Really good starting keeper for an international side. They have, bear with me, obviously Kufral will be mentioned. He's an absolute superstar at right back. He was a brilliant addition to the West Ham team, and he is an incredible motor on him. Just love watching him play. In the middle of the field, Alex Kral, I saw today West Ham are trying to sign him. He is a Spartak Moscow centre midfielder, young guy, defensive midfielder mostly. Really, really interesting player. You could see him for West Ham next year. They've realised that getting these cheap guys from Czech Republic is no harm, because Thomas Souček scored, I'm going to say 10 goals for them last year from that centre midfield role. He is just a brilliant ball player. Not alone is he incredible from like offensive and defensive corners, his work in the middle of the pitch is brilliant. His ball striking is great. His passing his engine is incredible for a guy who's whatever 6'5". It's hard to get up and down the pitch. The main man is going to be Vladimir Darida. I can't remember what club he plays for, but he'll play number 10 for them. He'll get on the ball, try to link it up with the forwards. There's a guy, I'm going to have to look this guy up.
They also have Patrick Schick, don't they?
They do. They have Patrick Schick for Leverkusen. Had a very good season for Leverkusen. Kind of an all-rounder striker again. Big 6'3", 6'4", can score with both feet. He will be their main man if they're to sort of progress in this tournament. Watch out for Adam Holzek, 18-year-old from Sparta Prague. This guy has scored 16. I have to look this up. This is just going to take a sec. I was going to guess it there, but no. 15 goals in 19 games in his first season of adult football. He has 8 assists for Sparta Prague. I know it's in the Czech league, but 18-year-old Adam Holza, keep an eye out for him. Also, what I was going to ask you, Mr. Lunchtime, would you, if you owned a club, would you put a blanket ban on them buying people that they see in cup competitions?
Yeah, you could. Definitely. I would never sign anybody that performs well unless they're kind of already proven prior to the tournament. I would never sign anybody who just pops up at a Euros or a World Cup and just is a star player straight away. We've seen it so many times that these players are just signed and they do absolutely nothing when they get a club. There's been millions of them. The best I can think of is El Hadj Diouf at Senegal in 2002. And I think it was Liverpool signed him, and he was possibly, I'd say most Liverpool fans would say, the worst signing they've probably ever had. There was another guy, a Brazilian guy at Man United, Kleberson. And I didn't even play for the club. I don't know. It's just,
like,
if you're...
It's fine in the 80s or the 70s or something if you're still a lad playing in a World Cup, but like, all your scouts should know all these players better than two lads in a sitting room in Salt Hill. And like, there should be nothing new for you. You know, you might confirm something by saying, okay, but really it shouldn't even be confirmation. If you like one of these players, you should have been watching them the whole time and you should know them. But every single tournament, there'll be a guy, could be Adam Holza for the Czech Republic. Wow, this 18-year-old scores, and then suddenly West Ham spent 40 million on him or something like that. Yeah. Every single tournament.
It will happen. It will happen.
And it's just like, you just have to play 3 group games, score in one of them, score a screamer, and it's money. It's great for players though, great exposure.
It could be a few Macedonian players could go on people's radars after this tournament, or something like that would be something to watch out for now.
Jopsy is going to Real Madrid after this tournament. Our brother from Galway. We're going to leave it at that. Mr. Lunchtime, thank you so much.
And don't forget to check out www.lunchtime.com, where we'll have all our best bets for the tournament up before the tournament starts on Friday.
Yes, indeed. Thanks, my friend.
Thank you very much.